The newest detective in television's sunniest crime franchise is the first one her own town cannot stand. Before the murders ever began, she jilted a local hero at the altar and vanished to the other side of the world. And the paradise she now polices does not exist. Dolphin Cove was dreamed up on the coast of New South Wales by the same British company that built St. Marie. Fact 1. The formula turned upside down. Every series in the Death in Paradise family has run on the same reliable engine. Take a detective, drop him somewhere he does not belong, and watch him solve murders while completely failing to fit in. Richard Poole sweltered in a wool suit on a Caribbean beach. Humphrey Goodman stumbled through paradise twice over, first in the tropics, then in the drizzle of the West Country. Return to Paradise takes that engine and runs it in reverse. Detective Inspector Mackenzie Clarke is not a stranger in Dolphin Cove. She grew up there. She knows the streets, the surf club, the gossip, and the grudges. For the first time in the franchise, the fish is back in its own water, and that turns out to be far more uncomfortable than any foreign posting. She is a first in another way too. After more than a decade of male detectives passing through the franchise, Richard, Humphrey, Jack, Neville, and the rest, Mackenzie is the first woman ever to lead one of its shows. The newest branch of television's most dependable crime family handed the badge to a woman and an Australian in a single stroke. The inversion quietly changes what the show is about. In the Caribbean, the story was always a community slowly adopting an outsider.
Good question, but a man is dead and we have work to do.
In Dolphin Cove, the community made up its mind about Mackenzie years ago, and the verdict was not kind. The question hanging over every case is not whether she will come to love the town, but whether the town can ever forgive her. It is the boldest creative swing the franchise has ever taken. Same sunshine, same impossible murders, but a detective who is running towards her past instead of away from it. The gamble proved the format is bigger than its original joke and gave the family its most complicated lead yet. Fact 2. The town hates its detective. Franchise detectives usually arrive to a warm, if bemused, welcome. Mackenzie Clarke arrives to folded arms. Years before the series begins, she did something Dolphin Cove has never forgotten. She left a local man, Glenn, one of the best-liked people in town, standing at the altar on their wedding day, and boarded a plane out of the country. Small towns keep long ledgers. When Mackenzie walks back into Dolphin Cove as its new detective, she is not the clever newcomer to be charmed by. She is the runaway bride who humiliated a favorite son. Witnesses remember her from school, suspects remember the wedding. Every interview comes with history attached. The show mines this for something the franchise had never quite had before, a detective who has to earn her own community. Richard Poole was grudgingly adored almost despite himself, and Humphrey was impossible to dislike. Mackenzie has to win Dolphin Cove back one solved case at a time, and the town does not make it easy. It also gives the mysteries an extra edge. A detective who knows everyone's secrets sounds like an advantage, until you remember that everyone knows hers too. Suspects in Dolphin Cove are perfectly happy to change the subject from the murder to the wedding, and some of the series' best scenes are Mackenzie being interrogated by her own witnesses. Underneath the sunshine, that is the real engine of Return to Paradise. It is not a story about paradise at all. It is a story about going home to a place that remembers the worst thing you ever did and doing your job anyway. Fact 3. She left London in disgrace. Every detective in the franchise arrived in Paradise reluctantly, but Mackenzie is the first who arrived because she had nowhere else to go. Before Dolphin Cove, she was a high-flying detective in London, with the career her hometown escape had brought her. Then, that career detonated. Mackenzie returns to Australia under the shadow of an accusation that she tampered with evidence in a London case. It is the kind of allegation that ends careers whether or not it sticks, and the series lets the truth of it unspool slowly rather than tidying it away in the first episode. The contrast with her predecessors is deliberate. Richard Poole was sent to St. Marie against his will. Humphrey was posted there. Mackenzie is effectively in exile. The job in Dolphin Cove is not a punishment posting handed down by a superior.
I think a big part of the show is about the meaning and the concept of home.
But the only door left open to her, Paradise, for her, is where you land when everything else has gone. It reshapes the character in ways the franchise had never tried. The earlier detectives were eccentrics, fussy, clumsy, endearing. Mackenzie is wounded. Her sharpness, her impatience, her refusal to explain herself, all of it sits on top of the question the audience is quietly asked away from the start. Did she do it? And it gives her brilliance a motive. A detective accused of bending the truth has one way back, solving cases so cleanly, so undeniably, that nobody can question her methods again. Every murder in Dolphin Cove is also for Mackenzie a small piece of a much longer appeal. Fact 4. A soap star leads it. The Death in Paradise family has a long habit of casting comedians as its detectives: Ben Miller, Chris Marshall, Ardal O'Hanlon, men who could make bafflement funny. For its Australian flagship, the franchise broke the habit completely and cast a dramatic actress with a very different pedigree. Anna Sampson came to the role best known to Australian audiences from Home and Away, the country's great production line of television talent, with years of stage and screen work behind her. For millions of viewers in Britain, she arrived as a completely fresh face. In Australia, she was already somebody. The casting choice shows on screen. Mackenzie is not played for cuddly eccentricity. Sampson gives her a guardedness the franchise's men never had: quick, dry, visibly carrying the weight of the accusation that sent her home, and lets the warmth leak out slowly, on the character's own stubborn terms. There is a pleasing symmetry in the wider cast too. Ty Hara, who plays the jilted Glenn, is another Home and Away alumnus. The show that has trained generations of Australian actors quietly supplied both halves of the franchise's most awkward reunion. For Sampson, it is the kind of role Australian television rarely hands out. The lead in an international franchise, broadcast on the BBC, watched on both sides of the planet. The first Australian to carry a Paradise show did it not by imitating the men who came before her, but by playing the one thing none of them ever were: someone with something to prove. Fact 5. Dolphin Cove is not real. Viewers who reach for a map after the credits roll are in for a disappointment. Dolphin Cove, the sun-baked coastal town with the surf club, the harbour and the improbable murder rate, does not exist. It is as invented as St. Marie, and invented for exactly the same reason. The town is conjured out of the coastline of New South Wales, with the series filmed in and around Sydney. The beaches, the headlands, the glittering water that fills every establishing shot, all real Australia, stitched together into a place you cannot actually visit. It continues one of the franchise's proudest traditions: geography as a beautiful lie. St. Marie is really Guadeloupe. Shipton Abbott is really a Cornish harbour town wearing a Devon name. And Dolphin Cove is a best-of compilation of the New South Wales coast, assembled shot by shot into somewhere slightly more perfect than anywhere real. The invention is strategic as well as scenic. A fictional town can have exactly the police station, the pub, and the community the stories need, and can absorb a murder a week without any real town's tourism board writing angry letters. Paradise, in this franchise, always works better as a dream, though the dream pays real dividends, just as Guadeloupe and Louis discovered before it. The scenery is one of the show's stars, an hour of Australian sunshine, delivered weekly into British living rooms, many of them watching in the depths of winter. The town may be fictional, the postcard is genuine. If you're enjoying this, it would mean a lot if you subscribed. It helps us keep making videos like this one. Just hit that button and you'll never miss a new one. Fact 6. British DNA, Australian heart. Return to Paradise looks, sounds and swears like a thoroughly Australian show, and it is. The cast is Australian, the setting is Australian, the humour is unmistakably Australian. But the machinery underneath it is the same British engine that has powered the franchise from the beginning. The series is made by Red Planet Pictures, the production company behind Death in Paradise and Beyond Paradise, working hand in hand with Australia's national broadcaster, the ABC, and with the BBC attached. It airs on the ABC at home and on BBC One in Britain. One show, two national institutions, opposite ends of the earth. The creative team was built as a bridge in the same way. The series was created by Peter Matesi, an Australian writer whose career includes years inside British television, including EastEnders, making him one of the few people fluent in both traditions. The show had to marry. That double citizenship is the quiet trick of the whole enterprise.
Does it?
So we don't step on each other's toes.
Keep your toes out of the way. I won't step on them.
The story structure, the closed circle of suspects, the impossible crime, the final act gathering where the detective explains everything is pure British whodunit, inherited directly from the parent show. The voice wrapped around it is entirely Australian. It makes Return to Paradise a genuine rarity, a British format that did not simply film abroad, but handed itself over cast, setting, sensibility and all, and trusted another country to carry it. The franchise's biggest export turned out to be the recipe itself. Fact 7. Her ex is the hook. Buried inside this Murder of the Week detective show is something the franchise had never dared build a series on before. A full-blown, slow-burning, will-they-won-they romance running in reverse. Glenn, played by Ty Hara, is the man Mackenzie left at the altar. He is also still in Dolphin Cove, still well-liked, and in the cruelest twist available to the writers, he has long since moved on with his life. The woman who ran away came home to find the door she slammed politely, painfully closed. The franchise has always flirted with romance. Richard and Camille, Humphrey and Martha, an entire spin-off built on Humphrey's happy ending. But the arrow always pointed forward. Detectives falling in love. Return to Paradise points it backwards. Its detective is not falling in love. She is living, daily, with the consequences of having walked away from it. It gives every episode a second mystery running under the first. The cases come and go, but the questions the audience actually argues about are the older ones. Why did she really run? What does Glenn still feel? And what happens to a small town when its most famous almost wedding refuses to stay in the past? It is the most grown-up, emotional engine in the whole franchise. Not the sweetness of new love, but the ache of an old one. And it is precisely what makes the sunniest show in the family also, quietly, its saddest. Fact 8. An instant ratings hit. Spinning a beloved format into a third series, on a third continent, with an unknown lead and no returning characters, is the kind of gamble that usually ends quietly and badly. Return to Paradise ended it loudly and well. The show launched in late 2024 as an immediate ratings success. In Australia, it arrived as one of the ABC's strongest drama launches in years. A homegrown hit for a broadcaster that had lent its name and its audience to a British franchise and been handsomely repaid. Australian viewers, it turned out, were more than ready to watch their own coastline commit murder. In Britain, the series slotted into the BBC schedule and did exactly what the franchise's owners hoped. It held the enormous Death in Paradise audience, who adopted Dolphin Cove as a third home without hesitation. The formula, once again, travelled better than anyone had a right to expect. The verdict came quickly. A second series was commissioned and was on screens by late 2025, confirming Dolphin Cove as a permanent address rather than an experiment. For a franchise skeptics once dismissed as a one-island wonder, it was the final proof of concept. The sunshine works in any hemisphere. And it settled a question hanging over the whole enterprise. Beyond Paradise had proved the format could survive without the Caribbean. Return to Paradise proved something bigger. It could survive without Britain, without a British detective, a British town or a British joke, and still feel, unmistakably, like part of the family. Fact 9. Same recipe, different ocean. Move a franchise 12,000 miles, and the fascinating question becomes what you pack. Return to Paradise's makers knew exactly which pieces of the formula were load-bearing and refused to touch them. The sacred ingredients all made the journey. A murder that looks impossible, a closed circle of suspects who all had reason, a small, endearing police team who bicker like family. And the grand finale the franchise can never abandon, the gathering of suspects, the detective's explanation, the guilty face falling as the trap closes. Sunday tea-time justice served under a harsher sun. What changed is the seasoning. The beach bar became a surf club. The gentle Caribbean lilt became dry Australian sarcasm.
It keeps your mind engaged while keeping you safe.
The detective's comic quirk, the sand-hating suit, the doomed satchel became something sharper. Mackenzie's guilt, worn like armor. The show is recognizably the same dish, cooked hotter. The scenery kept its old job too. Just as St. Marie's beaches and Shipton Abbott's harbour are characters in their own right, Dolphin Cove's coastline does half the storytelling, a paradise so bright that every murder in it feels like a small act of blasphemy. That collision of beauty and body count has been the franchise's signature from the very first episode. It amounts to a quiet masterclass in what a format actually is. Not a place, not a cast, not even a country, but a promise that for 1 hour, cleverness will beat cruelty and the world will be put back in order before bedtime. Return to Paradise kept the promise and changed everything else. Fact 10. Paradise never leaves television. With 3 series running St. Marie in the Caribbean, Shipton Abbott in the West Country, and now Dolphin Cove in Australia, the franchise has achieved something no British crime drama ever has. There is almost always a corner of the Paradise world on screen, or about to be. The 3 shows take turns carrying the flag across the year, each with its own season, its own weather, and its own audience ritual, while the specials fill the gaps between. What began as a single midwinter comfort has quietly become a year-round television institution, handed from one series to the next, like a relay baton. Return to Paradise is the piece that completed the machine. 2 shows was a hit and a spin-off. 3 is an empire spanning 3 continents, 2 hemispheres, and every kind of paradise from tropical to drizzly to sunburnt. No other franchise in the genre's history has stretched that far and stayed recognizably itself. There is a neat symmetry in who anchors its newest outpost. The franchise was built on detectives who did not want to be in paradise. It now rests, in part, on a detective paradise did not want back. Mackenzie Clarke, exiled, resented, unforgiven, is the proof of how far the format's one great idea can bend without breaking. And somewhere in Dolphin Cove, a town that does not exist, on a coastline that very much does, the runaway bride who came home in disgrace is still solving murders nobody else can. The empire of sunshine that began with one sweating detective on one imaginary island now circles the entire planet, and its newest citizen never even wanted to come home.